Welcome back to Browsing the Bestiary, a podcast that takes an in-depth look at all those creatures that put the monster in Monster Manual, the beast in Bestiary, and of course, the dragons in Dungeons and Dragons. I'm Dungeon Mistress Jayde.
And this is Lore Master Andy. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. It's
Good to have you.
It's good to have you here. You're all beautiful and moisturized.
I did just put on a lot of moisturizer. Thank you.
You're glowing. You're glowing with Dungeon Mistress aura. I love it. Today we are looking at an interesting boss monster. Ooh, so format is going to be 1 week. Last week we looked at goblins. Those are more kind of your chaff or your kind of large group enemies. Then the next week we will look at a boss monster or a named monster. Ooh. So
Ooh.
for this week's boss monster, could we get a dice roll, please, Jayde?
Yes, and these are very special dice. I was just telling Andy that these have little frogs with
Oh,
wizard hats, as well as little tadpoles with wizard hats, and you'll see why this is important. But first, let's get that dice roll in. You hear that?
oh yeah.
All right, let's go. All right. Ooh, we got a 15, Andy.
15. That bodes
Let's
well.
go.
So, with a 15, that gives us the
Okay,
Froghemoth!
Beth.
Froghemoth! Woohoo!
Andy, what do you know about Froghemoth?
So, the Froghemoth, as I've said before, I did not start playing till 5th edition, so I was not even aware of this creature until kind of midway into 5th edition's modules. I'd played through a couple before there was any mention of this thing, which the first mention of this guy in a module was in Tomb of Annihilation. He's
Hmm.
mentioned in Volo's Guide to Monsters before that, but I mean, if you're not specifically looking for something, there's a lot you can miss in Volo's Guide.
Yeah.
So imagine my surprise when playing through Tomb of Annihilation and this horrible frog thing with tentacles and 3 eyeballs pops out and starts terrorizing the party. But yeah, that was my experience with the Froghemoth, a big nasty beastie in Tomb of Annihilation. What's your experience? What do you know about this thing?
Absolutely nothing. I didn't know about Froghemoth until we were kind of browsing the bestiary, if you will,
Oh,
through Volos, just trying to find another monster we can click with, and this one popped up, so we're like, let's go for it.
yeah. Yeah, and as big scary monsters of the week go, this one is surprisingly iconic for Dungeons and Dragons, which the older heads in our audience will know that, but we are still kind of baby in the grand scheme of the history of D&D. So yeah, we're gonna break it down for you guys. So we're gonna start with the Volo's Guide description of the Froghemoth. So it states that the Froghemoth is an amphibious predator as big as an elephant. It lairs in swamps and has 4 tentacles, a thick rubbery hide, a fang-filled maw with a prehensile tongue, and an extendable stalk sporting 3 bulbous eyes that face in different directions. You can find that on page 145 of Volo's Guide if you're thumbing along through with us.
Yeah, and these descriptions of Froghemoth are just throughout the history of Froghemoth. Like every opening description of Froghemoth is so funny because it's like this creature is huge and weird.
yeah,
And some of them actually say that, some of them expand upon that, but every opening for each module or each edition is just perfect.
yeah. The Froghemoth, he's not a little guy. He's huge and weird.
But of
Uh,
course, before we get into Froghemoth, I want to go into some of the real world equivalents, just like we did with the goblins, looking at maybe where our writers pulled knowledge from in order to get this kind of creature. Um, and even before we do that, we want to give a huge shout out to a longtime poster on enworld.org.
Mm-hmm.
Echo Hawk.
Yes.
Echo Hawk did a lot of the heavy lifting for this episode in terms of research. Their post on the Froggy Myth goes into a lot of detail, more than we even get into here, on the evolution of Froggy Myth and all of like every single place, even down to the Magic the Gathering cards it
Yeah.
appears in. But we're just gonna cover some of the modules and, of course, some of the supplements it appears in.
Yeah, yeah, but if you want an even deeper and hyper specific dive, yeah, check out Echo Hawk's Frog Hemoth article on nworld.org.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we're gonna start out with as Echohawk states in their post, the word froghemoth is actually a portmanteau
Oh,
of the words frog and behemoth, two words put together.
hmm,
So obviously froghemoth, those two words together. In terms of real world mythology though, the froghemoth specifically as a giant tentacled 3-yard monster is not a thing as far as we know. There are, of course, instances of different myths where large frog-like creatures appear, but none of them are quite like froghemoth. But we're still going to get into those.
yes. Who among us has not, looked at something swimming in the water and thought, "What if this was the size of an elephant and had more eyes? We must write a legend about it."
Honestly, I feel like that's a lot of the
Yeah,
legends.
yeah, yeah. Definitely half of.
Bigger, scarier.
Yeah, I'm convinced half of all American cryptids are just like, "What if this normal thing, but worse?"
Speaking of cryptids, not exactly American, but our first cryptid is actually the Welsh's. Forgive me, Wales. I'm sorry, but Flamhegan Adder.
It's pretty good, actually.
Oh, I tried.
Yeah, Welsh is hard.
It translates to water leapers. And these creatures have the body of a toad. They have no hind legs, and then their front legs are actually bat wings.
Oh,
So they're just kind of flying almost like the middle of the frog cycle, right? Where it's like the tadpoles have like legs coming out,
yeah,
but they're not quite finished.
yeah, but flying somehow.
Yeah, even
Ooh,
scarier. And
ooh.
these guys are said to terrorize fishermen by snapping fishing lines or nets, or just by straight up eating the fishermen.
Oh, okay. I feel like there's a cautionary tale in there somewhere. I don't know what it is. I'm now scared a little bit of trying to fish around any frog-like things now. So, if that was the point of the legend, message received.
It is hard to kind of get the message out of European folklore. It's like, are we trying to keep kids away from the water or what? What are we
Yeah.
doing here?
The water was scary, and then everybody died. The end.
The end. Yep. Good night.
Good night.
Have sweet dreams of toad with bat wings.
Yes, yes. Mind
Our
your
next
fisherman.
cryptid comes from North America, or yeah, the continental North America. Aglabemu of the Wabanaki legend
Mm.
is a giant frog monster who would dam up the Penobscot River, causing a drought for its local people. Aglabemu is later defeated by a Wabanaki folk hero, Glooskap, who is and turns Aglabemu into a small bullfrog.
Ah, okay. So less a cautionary tale, more, mythical hero slays an awful monster, and this is how we got the animal that we see today. See, I like those
Yeah.
ones. That those
Uh,
stories have more of a purpose.
yeah, and on top of that, explaining droughts and like maybe where those phenomenon came from.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a great point. It's very cool.
Uh yeah, yeah. Next, we have all right, here we go. Katakiyochi Kiran Jiraya Monogatari,
Very
or
nice.
The Tale of the Gallant Jiraiya. This was originally published in 1806 and was a popular Japanese serialized novel whose protagonist, Jiraiya, rides giant frogs into battle and can even turn into a giant frog himself.
Ooh, that's cool.
Jiraiya and Tsunade, a young maiden who uses healing slug slash snail magic, team up to fight an evil robber and son of a serpent by the name of Orochimaru.
Ooh.
And that tidbit is for my fellow Naruto fans out there.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm like, that sounds familiar. So does that mean that somewhere out there we might have a potential anime Froghemoth to show to our players?
I feel like that's a possibility. It would definitely be a horror anime, if anything.
Yeah, yeah. We'll get to how these things are horrifying in a bit. Um,
Mhm, mhm.
yeesh.
Yeah, but before we do that, last cryptid I want to go to is I want to give a shout out to our home state of Ohio, where the cryptid the Loveland Frog or the Loveland Frog Man is
Yeah.
located. The Loveland Frog is a 4 foot tall humanoid frog that is said to be spotted near Loveland, Ohio by
Hmm.
a local police officer in 1972. Some skeptics say it was actually just a rather large tailless iguana found by another officer 2 weeks later, but I think we all know the truth.
Well, and the fun part of that story is that the second officer who saw this thing that the first officer had claimed he saw, his first instinct was to shoot it, which he did, and put it into the trunk of his squad car. And haul it back to the station. And yes, what he shot was an iguana, but we all know that that was just a decoy put out by the
Mm.
real Loveland Frog Man, right? We know better. Um, you know,
Yes,
you know
we
the
know.
the Frogman's pretty near and dear to my heart because I am actually from Loveland, Ohio. That is my hometown. We have Frogman themed festivals, and we actually love him so much that the local fire department's official patch has a picture of a big buff frog with a fireman's helmet
Oh
on
my
it.
god, that's so cute.
Yeah, yeah, it's awesome. And then on one of the outside walls of the fire station, there is the same big buff frog, which is putting out a fire with a fire hose. It's very cool. Yeah, we
I
we
feel
stand.
like Loveland Frogman would be a man of the people.
Well, yeah, I like to think so. I like to think so. He deserves a folk ballad about him, I think.
Definitely. Get on that, Andy. Yeah, but looking at all of these folk creatures, none of them really compare to the Froghemoth. We can see versions of these cryptid frogs in early D&D, such as the giant frog in AD&D First Edition,
Uh-huh.
in the Monster Manual, or maybe the fire toad, which is like what a 4 foot toad or something, in the Fiend Folio.
He can breathe fire.
Uh, yeah, he
Yeah,
can. Yeah.
casual.
But, looking at them, it is very clear that none of them have the same alien-like features that the Froghemoth has. And in terms of scale and fierceness, none of these creatures hold a flame to the behemoth that is the Froghemoth.
Oh, portmanteau.
We love portmanteaus.
So where do we first see the Froghemoth in all of D&D? Where does it first show up for us, Jade?
Mhm. Yeah. Uh, so the Great Froghemoth actually appears in a really cool Advanced Dungeons and Dragons module. So it doesn't quite get into the white box, but it does get into one of the earlier Advanced Dungeons and Dragons modules, actually written by Gary Gygax.
Oh, very
This
cool.
one is titled Expedition to the Barrier Peaks.
Yes. Hopefully a lot of people's, ears are perking up. Barrier Peaks. I've heard of those
Hmm.
before. Hmm.
It They should know because this module takes place in Gygax's world of Greyhawk,
Uh-huh.
which is a sword and sorcery type setting akin to like He-Man or Conan the Barbarian, where there's people with swords and there's also people with magic. And this story for this module begins with strange creatures that have been terrorizing the nearby city of Hornwood.
Hmm.
And our plucky little adventurers are charged with finding the source of these disturbances and finding a way to stop any future incursions.
Ooh.
Of course, there is a fun sci fi twist. Upon investigating the cave that these monsters seem to be appearing from, the adventurers find out that it's not a cave at all. It's actually a spaceship that crash landed while carrying some unsavory goods.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Mhm. It's really I think it's really fun, and these goods, have now grown a bit too big for the ship and are trying to find a way
Oh,
out.
good God.
The froghemoth, or frog thing, as it's called when the adventurers first see it, is one of the more terrifying passengers.
Oh, your poor sweet little adventurers. They have no
Oh, and
idea.
they'll find out because the description that you can give as a DM of the froghemoth goes out of its way to scare the players. It states, quote, whether this is a mutated thing or an adult form of some specimen loose from captivity, it is unquestionably the most fearsome of all the terrible life forms on the level.
Oh man. Like, when your DM goes out of their way, right, to say, this thing's really scary. In fact, it's the scariest thing, right? You as a player, you're like, maybe I should not go near it. Maybe I should run. I don't
Yeah.
know.
They are giving you warning, especially when there's all kinds of crazy things that are on the ship. I saw what was it? Intellect devours
Oh.
and like those plants that just spray poison everywhere and take over your mind
Oh
and try
yeah,
to eat you.
yelling yellow musk creepers.
That's it. Yep,
Yeah.
yep. So, those things are already pretty scary.
Yeah.
And also when you're thinking about it too, like you are adventurers in a sorcery type campaign that just come across the sci-fi. It's just a mix of those two. The artwork is pretty fun in the module because it shows like people like knights in armor and
Uh-huh.
plate mail armor walking through a spaceship while a intellect devourer, which for those of you who don't know, an intellect devourer is just a brain with legs
Yeah. It has
and
little like
tentacles.
cat legs. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So these two fantasy types meeting together is really cool. And for Froghemoth, who is the most terrifying, um, it only gets worse from there from the description. The physical description of the Froghemoth is said to be 18 feet
Oh
tall,
man.
10 feet wide.
Wow.
It has yellow orange coloring on the belly, medium green on its back and frog like legs. And then it has four yellow green tentacles sprouting from its back. And on top of its head is two nostril stalks, so it's got like little nose stalks, as well as a retractable eye stalk with three eyes.
Oh man. Ugh. Bleh. Gross.
Yeah, this
Horrifying.
thing's terrifying. And it's not like a regular like frog where it has you're probably thinking of a frog and then it has tentacles on it. No, like the front legs of the frog hemoth are its tentacles.
Yeah, yeah, it's yeah, weird evolutionary tree there, but yeah, it's those are its arms.
Well, Froghemoth was mainly made for swimming, but
Mhm.
yeah, coming out of the water and its movement is already terrifying.
Mhm. Mhm. Bleh.
And then mechanically looking at the stat block, the Froghemoth is an even more daunting foe, mainly because it has separate hit points and armor class for its body, tentacles, and tongue.
Oh wow. It's a cool idea, but in practice that must have been maddening for, AD&D players trying to figure out how to kill this thing. Like, "Wait, what do you
I
mean I can't hit the tongue? I hit the arm. What do you mean?"
Yeah, I don't know, I thought it was kind of fun. It adds a well, obviously this is the first rendition, but
Mhm.
speaking as a 5e player, it adds like a fun way for characters to fight a creature rather than it just be like a huge creature with a lot of hit points
Mhm.
and a high AC. It's now a creature you have to be a little more tactful with attacking it, you know?
Yeah, yeah, definitely need to make sure you and your other party members are on the same page. Otherwise, this might not go so well.
Exactly. And it also has this froghemoth has a lot of features, including it can do four attacks with its tentacles, so one for each, as well as one attack with its barbed tongue,
Ooh,
which can actually grab and swallow a character. or a player if they're not prepared.
Mhm, mhm,
So if you maybe recognize this as a frog, you'd be like, "Oh, okay, I need to stay somewhere where I can grab something in case it tries to get me."
mhm.
But if you're not prepared for that, it's gonna eat you.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. And there's no roll to get out of it. You're
Yeah.
just eaten. um there are ways to slow it down by either and this stat me and Andy were talking about changes a lot.
Uh-huh.
The status effects in terms of fire, electricity, and ice for the frog heave changes every edition.
Yeah.
It is maddening. But for this edition, fire attacks will scare the froghemoth for 1 round. Cold attacks will have its speed and attack rate for 1 round. This probably would be best to use when running away from the creature, as depending on the level of the player characters, I don't really think they would get out of this one alive.
Yeah. Yeah, especially, I'm not sure what level this module was intended for. And granted, modules and the levels that they're for were very different back in AD&D than, they are in like 4th and 5th editions.
Mhm.
But one would imagine that this was specifically made to be kind of an unbeatable, beastie for the players at their level. So yeah, I would assume that that was a mechanic that the designers put in, right, to basically buy your party time so that they can run away. Um,
Yeah, I think so, and on top of that, the froghemoth is guarding a lot of treasure
mhm.
that is in the swamp area it is in. So one of the features that you can do is you can distract the froghemoth while someone else uses their turn and ability points to get treasure out of the water.
Mhm.
I thought that was a really cool feature. So if maybe you're not, you can't take the monster on, but you can distract it long enough to get some goodies. That's always a thing you could do as well.
Yeah, that's so sword and sorcery. Like, hey, you guys, go be a living distraction while I get the loot. That's great. That's great. I love that. So later on, after it's introduced in the Barrier Peaks module, the Froghemoth does become an official monster in the Monster Manual 2, which was also written by Gary Gygax, which came out in 1983. Sticking to our tried and true description here, it's described as huge and weird. Found only where there are large swamps or relatively shallow bodies of water. And it specifically says that means 100 feet deep or less. I guess the assumption here is you don't want the froghemoth showing up with like bigger sea creatures. You don't want that and a kraken, I guess, sharing the same body of water.
Which
Um,
would make sense, yeah.
yeah, yeah. There's too many tentacles in here. One of us has to leave. It specifically says that froghemoths are solitary except during spring mating season. So I guess spring rolls around and they're just like, it's spring mating season. Come on, girlies, time to lay some eggs. And the entry goes on to describe froghemoth mating practices in very weirdly specific detail.
Yeah, a lot of
Which
detail.
yeah, which those of you who are familiar with some of the tweets of Ed Greenwood and Gary Gygax,
Oh, lord.
yeah, which we will not go into here, but feel free to research on your own, dear adventurers. This makes a lot of sense. So I'm going to borrow you some of the details, but here, importantly, at least to the designers, this says that young froghemoth hatchlings are called tadhemoths, adorable, until they reach adulthood in 3 years. And there's a lot in here about the froghemoth life cycle. I don't know why your players would need to know all of this, but the designers included it all. Like I said, go read the Monster Manual 2 from AD&D if you want to go into all the
Mhm.
nitty gritty details. But it's like 2 paragraphs of just mating and life cycle.
I feel like it makes sense because when we were in like elementary school and we're learning about cycles, and it's always the butterfly and the frog, and I feel like
Hmm.
it's just a reinterpretation of that by Gary Gygax.
Yeah, they're like, you know what nerds love? Life cycles. Let's go through all of that. Um, so more mechanically here, frog behemoths are classified as large creatures, with each of its 4 tentacles having a 15-foot reach. This becomes important. The movement descriptions are actually kind of cute for this being such a big, horrible thing. When it's in a swamp or marshland, it just kind of kicks itself along on its belly. Um, especially again from far away, it's like, oh, that's cute. It coming at you, not cute, terrifying. But it's just squidging around on its tummy. In the water, it swims. And then on dry land, it hops around on its huge hind legs, and then uses its tentacles as front legs, as a kind of, frog hops forward.
I
This
feel like it sounds so pitiful when it's walking on land.
Yeah, exactly. Then you look at the artwork, you're like, "Oh, that's not
Oh,
pitiful.
yeah.
Not pitiful." It's like a
Run
T-Rex.
away.
Yeah. So froghemoths are described as ambush predators, waiting with their entire bodies submerged below the waterline, with only their eye stalks and nostril stalks visible above the surface. Which stay tuned for the nostril stalks, because that becomes different in later editions.
Mhm.
They wait like this for hours until any unwitting prey gets too close to their tentacles, which are placed near the shore. Its eyes are described as being a bright amber color with vertical slits for pupils. Truly, truly horrifying. So if you're lucky enough to see those things looking at you, you know something's wrong. If not, you just get grabbed by a tentacle and yanked up into the air or dragged into the water.
Mhm. Mhm.
This version still has the froghemoth's body, tentacles, and tongue as all having different armor classes and hit points. Obviously, the play testing and actual playing of the module was successful enough with those mechanics that the designers decided to make that official. This is because both the tentacles and the tongue can ensnare players and pull them towards the froghemoth's mouth. They really want to nom on your tasty boys and girls. It has a pretty nasty bite attack and a swallow that's part of it that can be used against any player that is grappled by the tongue. As Jayde was talking about before, there is a chance for the players to save, and that's specifically to grab onto something that's nearby.
Mhm.
Maybe that is a tree root, maybe that is a signpost, maybe it's your friend. But if they don't make the save, then they just get pulled right into the mouth, chomped on, and swallowed.
Yeah,
Um,
which the save is you contending with the froghemoth's strength
uh-huh.
against yours, so you're almost guaranteed not to get it.
Yeah. It's there kind of to give you like the false glimmer of hope. Because if it grabs you, you're probably getting et.
Mhm.
If you are lucky enough to survive the bite, then you are fully swallowed. You are knocked unconscious in 2 rounds, and you are most likely fully digested by the froghemoth in 4 rounds, and that is because its stomach acid does 4 damage dice of acid damage per round.
Oh my god,
Yeah.
that's so much.
Yeah. I mean, especially in AD&D, like 16 points of acid damage per round, that's a lot. Um,
Yeah, that's like all of your party.
yeah. It's like, yeah, your whole party at once. Um, To kind of make things even worse, the book specifically states that any digested player cannot be resurrected. So if you are made into frog food, that's it. I'm sorry, make a new character. If a froghemoth has its tongue fully severed, it enters into a like state of rage. Think of it like the rage state that a barbarian would go into when
Mhm.
it uses its rage. In this state, it does double damage with its tentacle attacks. And then after 2 to 5 rounds, depending on the percentile dice that the DM rolls, it just leaves and then hides. And that's so that I guess lore wise, it can heal up over the course of a couple weeks and then
Mhm.
be back to eating unsuspecting adventurers.
Well,
Um,
sometimes it'll chase after you for a few rounds and then it'll leave, but,
yeah,
that depends on the dice rolls, but either way, truly terrifying.
Yeah. Absolutely horrifying monster. Now, this version of the froghemoth has resistance to fire damage. They changed it a little bit from the module. Although it says that very big or very hot fires will scare it for 1 round. I assume this means either like you're lighting a gigantic bonfire or you're using magical fire. It's really not very
Mhm.
clear. So that's up to I guess DM discretion and how much of a rules lawyer your rules lawyer player is. Electrical attacks will only do 1 point of damage per damage die, but they will slow the froghemoth to half speed and half attacks for 1 round. So instead of 4 tentacle attacks flying out, only 2 for that round. So there is some utility there for any party that figures that out.
Yeah, and it definitely figured it out fast because the frog team is not waiting for you.
Yeah, yeah, he's hungry and he's gonna make you a snack.
Moving on from first edition, we move on to second edition, and can I just say that the artwork for second edition's Froghemoth is probably the cutest version out of all the other versions. That definitely lean more into the horror side when depicting Froghemoth. 2E Froghemoth gives little guy vibes,
Just a little guy.
just a little guy, which is even funnier when reading the beginning of the entry for Froghemoth in the Monstrous Compendium. It says, quote, "This giant amphibian horror lurks in the darkest swamps and the dankest subterranean pools." But then, so it sounds terrifying, but then
Yeah,
when you actually look at the picture of the Froghemoth, it has its little tentacles in front of it, like a little, like, Dobby, and it's
yeah.
like, "Mom, my mom said that you have to let me eat with you guys."
Yeah, it doesn't help that the ice stalks in this artwork look like a droopy jester hat.
Which I cannot unsee after you said
Yeah,
that.
yeah. It looks like a little jester hat. Which like you said, it really drives home the guys. I'm just trying my best vibes.
He's really trying, you
He's
guys.
trying so hard to eat you.
And can I say one other thing about the artwork for second edition is I want to point out a discrepancy because you know how us nerds are. Actually,
Actually,
I'd like to point out the Froghemoth in the picture has 6 tentacles, 3 on each side, but in the text it says it only has 4, 2 from each shoulder. So, maybe this one's a special case, but I digress.
yeah. Yeah, maybe they gave the wrong description to the artist, or maybe the artist was like, I don't know, maybe just more tentacles. Why not? So in second edition, the Froghemoth is featured in a page of the Monstrous Compendium Volume 2, which was published in 1995. Most of the information is copied directly from the first edition Monster Manual tool entry, but there are some subtle changes. Lore-wise, the Froghemoth is confirmed to be carnivorous, is categorized as an amphibian, and is said to not leave the water due to the difficulty of moving on dry land. So now there are no more awkward hops or crawling on its belly for this guy,
Womp
unless,
womp.
yeah, womp womp. Unless, of course, you piss it off by cutting off its tongue, in which case it will chase you for 2 to 3 rounds. So they're keeping the aggro state from the previous edition. As far as our stats are concerned, the Froghemoth's 4 tentacles now do constricting damage when it grabs a player, right? Grabs them, gives them a little squeeze. This does 1d4 plus 4 damage each round until either the tentacle is severed or the captured creature spends a round to pull itself free and makes a successful open doors roll. Now, this is interesting because, as the name implies, this mechanic is usually used to, open a door that is heavy or stuck or performing some kind of similar task. A successful roll is determined by rolling a d20 and comparing it to the strength ability table in the player's handbook. In combat, hit probability and damage are also accounted for in this table. Today, we would just call that a strength check or a strength saving throw, which is a lot simpler than the 2E table. There are definitely criticisms of 5E's system for being too streamlined, but there are definitely times when I look back at certain types of saves or, ability check mechanics in previous editions, and I'm like, maybe this was a good change.
Yeah, I definitely agree. When I was researching and writing for this passage, I'm like, I cannot read this table for the life of me. I'm just gonna say D20 strength check.
Yeah, exactly.
I
Strength check.
cannot read this. I really wanted to say like what the role would be to
Mhm.
get out of the Froghemoth's grasp, but I couldn't do the math. So someone out there, the like Andy said, the old heads figure that math out for us.
Yeah, I think it only worked for so long where it was like, you know what, nerds like tables and math. And I think after a while, I was like, you know what? Maybe
Not
we
every nerd.
Yeah, not every nerd. Maybe we don't need to do as much of this. Second edition, not a whole lot in the way of changes for the Froghemoth. But 3rd edition, just like we talked about with goblins, just turns this monster up to a whole new level.
3rd edition is always just insane.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And after second edition, Froghemoth doesn't really appear in any 3rd or 4th edition monster manuals or other supplemental books. This is where we once again turn to Echohawk
Mm-hmm.
for their research on the appearances of Froghemoth, which it does make in smaller modules from Dungeon Magazine for 3rd edition and in Gamma World for 4th edition.
Yes.
Which we will talk about.
Mm-hmm.
As for 3rd edition, the Froghemoth appears in a module called the Champion's Belt.
Ooh.
It is a module in Dungeon Magazine number 128. It is actually the 5th installment of a 12-part campaign called The Age of Worms Adventure Path, published in Dungeon Magazine. It also has supplements for Dungeon Masters in Dragon Magazine, which, yes, those are 2 different magazines, but also kind of coincide with each other.
Yeah.
It's pretty fun.
Yeah, kind of like side-by-side mutual publishing, which I'm not familiar, obviously with this exact issue of either magazine, but I have actually heard of the Age of Worms adventure. So that just goes to how big of a deal this whole thing was, because I've not even played 3rd edition, and I'm even tangentially aware of this.
Yeah, it seems like a pretty fun campaign, and this module in particular seems cool. This installment takes place once again in the world of Greyhawk, in the Free City. And this is designed for 9th level adventurers.
Oh,
so
yes.
Pretty tough.
Getting powerful.
Lots going on. The players in this module have to go undercover in a gladiator battle known as the Champions Games in order to investigate the founder and current manager of the games, a retired gladiator by the name of Loris Rachnian.
Okay, some subterfuge, right? Some cloak and dagger. I like it.
And the players must survive the games while also on the side uncovering Rachnian's plot to sacrifice the winner of sacrifice the winner of the games to a unknown god in exchange for prolonged life.
Okay, all right. I mean, that's a plot. That's cinema.
And that kind of goes into the plot of the Age of Worms, where one way or another, I think the god does actually get the sacrifice, which opens up the Age of Worms.
Yes.
But that's for later editions. So you can imagine where the Froghemoth obviously comes into play in the story of gladiators. On the 3rd day of the Champions Games, the players have to fight a giant monster as one of their trials. This monster is actually a Froghemoth named Madtooth the Hungry.
Oh man, that goes so hard. I love that. It's like, oh, who am I fighting today? Oh, Madtooth the Hungry. Oh, I'm sorry, who? What? I'm not prepared.
Yeah, it's instead of being one originally, like an ambush predator, obviously this captured Froghemoth is a little more hungry, so it's going to be a little more direct with its attacks, and it just goes all out as soon as it gets out of the cage.
That's awesome.
And a cool thing about Madtooth is said to have been captured from the distant Barrier Peaks.
Oh!
We're back at Barrier Peaks.
Oh, throwback.
Looking at the index at the end of the module with the Froghemoth stat block, the description actually confirms that this Froghemoth is a relative of the original Froghemoth in Barrier Peaks module.
There we go. I love some continuity.
We love it. Yeah, it actually states, quote, "The first Froghemoth was encountered in a strange, unnatural cavern deep in the barriers by a group of adventurers." Wouldn't that be so fun if you were like an original D&D player that played Barrier Peaks, and then you get to this module and you're like, "Oh, that's us. We were there.
We did that 20 years ago. Whoa!" Yeah, that'd be so cool.
So cool. And it goes on to state that news of this cave and its unnatural occupants attracted a lot of collectors and hunters and even cultists from all over to take what they could from the cave.
Yes, keep that in mind for later editions, the cultist bit.
The most profitable item being the eggs of the froghemoth sold by adventuring merchants. But the cult of an obscure hopping deity of the swamps,
Mm.
so some kind of swamp deity,
Hmm.
steal the eggs from the merchant and made it their mission to introduce the eggs to swamps all over the world, much to the chagrin of apex predators in the affected ecosystems.
Yes, this is the D&D version of ecocide of what do you call them? Invasive species.
Yes, invasive. They are for sure invasive species.
They're invasive, all right.
They are the pythons of Florida.
Oh. Oh no.
And of course they're considering how beefy the 3E's froghemoth is compared to its ancestors. I wouldn't be surprised how chagrined these creatures are.
Yes, yes. Once again, harking back to why we're putting a cap at how deep the water that these guys can be in, right? Don't want to displace all of the local, gigantic, horrible monster things. Which, speaking of, this is a change in third edition. So previously, the Froghemoth was classified as a monstrosity. Now, in third edition, the Froghemoth is officially classified as an aberration. Which aberrations are they're otherworldly creatures. When we think of other prominent aberrations, you can think of things like mind flayers, things like beholders, gibbering mouthers, astral hulks, basically things that are from other realms of existence. Things that are not from this planet. And this makes a lot of sense. Considering,
And so many tentacles, by the way.
yeah, exactly, yeah. A lot of aberrations have a lot of tentacles.
Yeah.
Do with that what you will.
Mm.
But this makes a lot of sense considering its origins, right? It came crash landed on a spaceship, which, we can assume was coming from, a different planet. Or for in fourth edition, a different crystal sphere. All right, we see you, Spelljammer. You are valid. Um, this version of the Froghemoth, it's a bit more streamlined in how it works, in that it no longer has a separate armor class and hit points for its body, tentacles, and tongue.
Ooh,
Instead, yeah, I know, but it's less for DMs to keep track of.
that's fair.
Yeah, it instead has an all-over HP of 20d8 plus 120, or if you average that out, that's 210 hit points with an AC of 21. So still nothing to sneeze at here, but
Mm.
now you can just hit it, assuming you can bypass its armor class. This version of the Froghemoth has dark vision of up to 60 feet and is partially immune to electric damage, different from the previous edition where it only would take, one damage die. Now it just doesn't take damage, but it's slowed for a round instead. Trade-offs there. And it is resistant to fire damage. The tongue now has a 30-foot reach instead of just a 10-foot reach, so, if you thought your backline casters might be safe, think again.
Mm.
The tentacles still do constricting damage, but now when the Froghemoth attempts to snag another creature with its tongue or its tentacles, it has to succeed in a grappling contest with any prey that it has in its tentacle. So,
That's good.
yeah, we're throwing another bone to the players here because, in previous editions, these things were, oh.
Grab and go,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah, grab a snack, I'll be right back. Um, It now also has to use an action to swallow a creature whole after succeeding on the grapple check, instead of automatically succeeding on a 19 or a 20. So also, when we're getting into more specific anatomic things, this says a huge Froghemoth's stomach can hold 4 medium, 8 small, 16 tiny, or 32 diminutive, or 64 fine or smaller opponents. So, really big stomach on this iteration. I guess there was just confusion in previous editions, like, well, how many party members can it swallow? And in this edition,
We
they're
have
like,
to do like the math around the froghemoth. So it's 18 feet tall and 10 foot wide. So we got to do
yeah,
The volume of
Yeah.
a froggy myth.
Well, according to this, the stomach is how many cubic feet? Yeah, exactly. And this just eliminates that. Now, while I like that these writers attempted to make the Frog King myth a little bit more fair, I do think that some of these changes take away from the fun and the horror, more importantly.
Mhm.
That is this huge and weird creature, right? It's an otherworldly thing, that is now made a little bit more worldly in how your party is able to just kind of whack it and do damage. Jade and I were talking about this. We thought that it would be kind of fun in the heat of battle for players to have to figure out that the different parts of the Frog Hemoth have different armor classes and HP. We talked a bit about how that leads them to be a bit more strategic. And as DMs, it is fun to have ways to reward your players for being strategic. And it's also important for your players to be feeling the pressure that one of them could get snagged and eaten up at any minute. And giving them more things to have to focus on while keeping that pressure on is, I don't know, just a fun way to kind of keep the tension.
Yeah, but I can understand why they made the changes to make it a little more easier for both players and DMs. Like the addition of the grapple check, I think is definitely more fair. But
Hmm.
as a DM, I think it would also be fun to keep the automatic swallow at 19 or 20.
Yeah. And
Just for
yeah,
funsies.
yeah, for any of you who have played in any of Jade's campaigns, you know how much she rolls crits with her creatures against our party members. So that swallow would just be guaranteed.
I swear it's roll 20. I have nothing to do with it. Blame roll 20.
So that's third edition. All right. Now, before we get into the fourth edition version of the Frog Hemoth, we need to talk about Gamma World. Okay.
Oh, Gamma World.
Yeah, Gamma World. So, all of the mentions of Frog Hemoth in fourth edition are limited to Gamma World. It never makes an appearance in the D&D proper, quote unquote. It's not in Dark Sun. It's not in the Forgotten Realms. If you were going to port it into Greyhawk, you'd have to do that yourself. It's not in Eberron. And the reason for this is that TSR, which was the original creator of Dungeons and Dragons, also made other tabletop role-playing games, with Gamma World being one of them. The 4th edition sourcebook Gamma World 4, which was published in 1992, describes the setting as, quote, science fantasy instead of science fiction, end quote. And this takes place in a post-apocalyptic future, right? So it's this kind of blending of, like magic and like fantasy mayhem, but in a sci-fi setting. Kind of think about this like Fallout, but obviously there's magic. And with the world nuclear war happening in the year like 2200 instead of 1950. So a lot of the technology that is available is much more advanced,
Mm.
than you'd have in like a Fallout type setting. It's still a Fallout type setting, but just with even worse things out there. Gamma World itself is an irradiated wasteland with all manner of mutated creatures, including mutated human offshoots, as well as pureblood humans, other fantasy races, sentient plants and animals, robots, and aliens.
You just got a good mix of everything. I love the term science fantasy. I want to use that in one of my campaigns.
Yeah, it's a total kitboshing of all the fantasy things that we know and love, because we're nerds.
Mhm.
Um, Fast forward to 2010, where Wizards of the Coast started publishing supplements that could be used in the Gamma World setting, right? So this is how we get this to kind of come alongside 4th edition. One of these, which is entitled Famine in Fargo, contained the 4th edition Frog Hemoth. One of the things that I really do love after having researched 4th edition Gamma World is the fact that a lot of the settings are just like places in the American West that are just pronounced strangely. Like Fargo is like, the city of Fargo. I also like the province of North Dakota, which is included. And these are all just like mispronounced versions of their real world counterparts. Part of the humor that's part of the Gamma World setting is the fact that we're so far in the future that the current inhabitants don't know anything about the world that existed before the cataclysmic event that wrecked the world. Which I love how the denizens of the setting call that the big mistake.
The big mistake, the big
Yes. The
whoopsie.
big whoopsie. Yeah. Definitely no social commentary included from the designers on that one. Definitely not.
No. But looking at this world, it just makes sense to add the Froghemoth
Mm-hmm.
into this, and
Mm-hmm.
the fourth edition version of the Froghemoth is really interesting. It is described as a large terrestrial beast, and of course inhabits large lakes and swamps and deep ponds contaminated with radiation and chemicals. So this is kind of a throwback to its first edition ancestor, where it was described as huge and weird.
Uh-huh. There it is.
Yep, back again to the huge and weird. I think that's the calling card of the Froghemoth.
Yes. It's huge and weird.
And rather than being just some kind of alien creature, this supplement gives two possible origins for this iteration of the Froghemoth.
Oh, okay.
The the first is that they evolved, mutated from normal-sized frogs due to centuries of contaminant exposures. Blah blah blah, boring. But the other theory is that these creatures were bred by a mad bioengineer named Bob.
Bob. Oh,
We
can we
love
build
Bob.
it?
You probably shouldn't.
Yeah, that's always the lesson in these tales, right? It's like we could do this. We did do this. What a mistake. What a mistake. The big
Terrible.
mistake.
The big mistake. Big oof. um, Now, this CR8 creature gets a movement speed of 5 and a swimming speed of 7. On top of that, the AC is increased significantly to 24.
Mm-hmm.
So good luck hitting that. But its HP is lowered a bit to 178, so it is a little less beefy than its counterparts in previous editions, particularly second edition.
Mm-hmm.
It does, however, gain all-around vision from its 3 eyes, which means that players cannot gain advantage from trying to flank it.
Yeah, which for those of you fourth edition heads out there, you already know this, but for those of you who have not played fourth edition, it's a tactical mechanic that's part of the rule set. Where if you have a player who's fighting a monster enemy head on, another player can come around to flank it from the back, and that grants advantage to the attacks of both players, which is awesome. And the Froghemoth is like, no, you can't do that.
It's got its eyes on a swivel. I mean, what are the 3 eyes for if not to discourage flanking?
That's true. That's true.
The 4E Frog Behemoth once again loses its resistance to lightning damage, but it can be slowed by it. So we're back to it being slowed by lightning damage.
Mm-hmm.
It retains its resistance to fire, and it now can breathe underwater. It gets a +2 to attack rolls against other creatures in the water,
Okay.
and it doesn't take any movement penalties in mud or shallow water.
Oh yeah. Once again, we're back to like terrifying belly sliding, but at full
Mm.
speed towards your
Yeah,
players that are like trying to like muck their way, slog their way through the mud and the marsh.
it's
Ugh.
much faster. Yeah, it's very scary, and it on top of that, it retains the ability to attack with all 4 of its tentacles. It keeps its grasping tongue. Albeit the auto chomp is not there anymore.
Okay.
But it can still swallow players it has immobilized by its bites.
That seems fair.
Mhm. So giving the players a little less damage. Uh, but still, even when they're swallowed, they still take a lot of damage. 10 acid damage per round.
Oof, man.
Yep, it's still pretty significant.
Yeah.
And but players do actually get the possibility of getting out of that situation if they
Okay.
succeed a fortitude save against the Froghemus DC. They then appear in a unoccupied space next to the Froghemoth, which does that mean what I think it means? Like the player succeeds in it.
Yeah, they get themselves puked up. That's right.
That that makes sense. Maybe for a little less gross flavor, they could just climb out of them.
Or if you want to be extra gross flavor, your player can just like reach up out of its stomach and grab its uvula.
Ugh, gross. No, thank you.
Only if you're a barbarian. Um,
Just
s-
hugs the uvula.
that's right. This is mine now. Blech, blech. So just to deal some injuries to the insult, the froghemoth now can smack any enemy that hits it. So if it takes an attack, it can just whoosh, smack it with a tentacle attack as a reaction.
That's
Um,
pretty funny.
yeah. Just nope. Whoosh, I don't think so. Which does, give it a little bit of a damage boost, which, kind of necessary for balance, considering a lot of its damage was kind of tamped down in this version.
Mhm.
I personally love that in fourth edition, they no longer call the juvenile froghemoths tadhemoths. Now they're called polywoghemoths for some reason. I can only assume Pokemon had some kind
Yeah,
of
probably.
yeah, had some kind of influence on this. The polywoghemoths only have a swimming speed, which means that they can't walk because they're still in the aquatic stage of their amphibious life
And
cycle.
they don't have bat wings, so, they
Yeah,
gotta stay
no,
in the water.
no flying, thank God. Um, but they're not pushovers. They can take a pretty good chunk out of players with their chomp attack, which does 46 plus 8 damage.
Yeesh.
Yeah. And then my favorite mechanics that it has, if it's trying to get away instead of fighting, it can use an attack called a nimble nibble, which does 2d6 plus 8 damage, and lets the polywoghemoth move 2 squares away. So, not defenseless little spawn here. They're well equipped to handle themselves against your party.
Makes sense why the eggs would be so valuable
Yeah.
in most of the editions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of, we finally come to 5th edition
Yay!
Froghemoth.
We're back.
Woo! Yeah, so like we said, in 3rd and 4th edition, Froghemoth doesn't really appear in any of the monster manuals or the supplemental monster manuals, mainly in the modules. But in 5th edition, Froghemoth officially reappears in a supplement called Volo's Guide to Monsters,
Yes.
which was published in 2016. This time, the Froghemoth is categorized as a unaligned monstrosity, which I didn't like very much. I like the aberration categorization that 3E gave it, but I guess going back to its roots as a monstrosity kind of makes sense.
Mhm.
The lore in this edition gives a shout out once again to the original module, stating that a journal belonging to a wizard by the name of Lum the Mad describes Froghemus as having first emerged from a strange metal cylinder buried in the
Oh.
ground, although no reliable reports exist of the place,
Yeah.
according to Volo.
Yeah, which, that's kind of a fun little, world building bit from Volo, right? Cuz, Volo's information is good or it's not. It depends.
Mm.
That's part of the fun with Volo's character. But I do like the fact that, this is in confirmed or denied kind of bit that's written in here because as we know, the Forgotten Realms takes place on a different planet than Greyhawk does. So this idea of like, these swirling rumors from this insane wizard, it's kind of fun because it's like, yeah, you can't really confirm it unless you've traveled to a different plane, or a different, crystal sphere, which you either have to be a part of a spelljammer crew or an insane wizard to do that. So,
Makes a lot of sense.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And the description continues more about, once again, the Froghemus life cycle.
of
It,
course.
yep, we got to go back to the life cycle. In 5th edition, it is a little bit altered, with any Froghemoth being able to lay fertilized eggs every few years instead of every 9 years.
Okay.
So little more Froghemoth
Mm-hmm.
babies coming out.
Mm-hmm.
And the Froghemoth parents absolutely give no shits about.
Good luck, kid Yanyon.
Yes, apparently, according to Volo, apparently the hatchlings have a better chance of survival if the parents kind of peace out, as hatchling behemoths can become tasty little snacks for their oblivious parents.
which, that is very Animal Kingdom of them.
Mhm.
There is just a kind of an uncomfortable amount of creatures in our own world that just eat their young when they get bored or, want a snack. So, this tracks.
Yeah, it makes sense. And then going on, the little frog hemoths grow to full size in about a period of a few months as they eat all the other creatures they come across in the swampy habitats. Going back to the invasive apex predator.
Yes. Yes. It's a real problem. Really earning its CR10 rating.
Yeah, and on top of that, with the CR10, in this edition, the Froghemus AC actually is lowered quite a bit to 14, but this kind of makes sense because a lot of 5e like monsters that are animal-like in their intelligence usually have a lower AC just because
Mhm.
it's their natural uh, armor,
Yeah. Mhm.
whatever armor they have. Apparently, the Froghemoth is just like a frog, so it's going to have a lot lower of a AC. It still has quite a bit of hit points with its average around 184. Sometimes some of the creatures can be up to 272,
Wow.
which does make them a little less sturdy than their 3E and 4E counterparts. But those editions also had a lot higher ACs, so it kind of makes sense.
Yeah. And, player characters could also just hit differently. The player characters hit different. They just hit differently then, right? So those this lower AC is put in place mechanically to, compensate for the fact that 5th edition characters in their attack rolls hit numerically lower on average than some of
Yeah.
the previous editions because there's just less shit that they can do. So, gotta compensate. Thanks, game designers.
Yeah, and also in terms of compensating, we once again get a change to the Froghemus resistances. This time it has a resistance to fire and lightning damage,
Oh, okay.
but it does have a interesting feature called shock susceptibility,
Okay.
which means that when it takes lightning damage, it takes a -2 to its AC and Dex saving
Oh,
throws.
wow.
It also can't use reactions or multi attack
Oh,
on its
wow.
turn. Yeah, so it can only use an action or a bonus action, not both.
That's debilitating.
Yeah, yeah. So
Wow.
definitely throw some lightning bolts at the frog hemoth.
Yeah. Don't metagame, though. Don't metagame, players.
Won't let them know.
Yeah.
I feel like they would know. They'd be like, "Oh, it's a swamp. It's a frog creature. Lightning." It just kind
Hmm.
of makes sense.
Yeah. I've been saving this lightning bolt for 3 sessions. I might as well use it.
Yeah, and I once again I think this is a an nod to earlier editions having like cold and lightning damage slow it down.
Yeah.
With the hit to its AC and the Dex saving throws. Um, so that helps a lot with that, especially if you want to run away.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So another change for this edition's Frog Hemoth is that it does not get the all-around vision from 4th edition, which I think is because there's no official flanking mechanic that it's a part of 5th edition. It's an optional rule that many DMs employ, but it's not official. So it doesn't have that protection point against that. However, because of its 3 eyes, our boy has a whopping 19 passive perception. So good luck on
Mhm.
sneaking up behind one of those guys. Rogues, feel free to try it if you don't mind getting eaten.
Mhm.
Mechanically, the Frog Hemoth ambush tactics are the same as the previous editions: hide in the water and attack things that get too close. The Frog Hemoth gets some changes to its attacks. Now it only has 2 tentacle attacks instead of 4, and then a bite or tongue attack as part of its action. This tongue is now 20 feet. It's kind of a nice middle ground between the first edition's 10 feet, which is a little bit short, and third edition's 30 feet, which is insane.
It was insane.
Yeah, it's too much. The tentacles do a combination smack, right? They do damage, and then grapple for some substantial
Mhm.
damage. But the nasty part of the Frog Hemoth is still its tongue. A player targeted by the tongue now gets to make a strength saving throw. If they fail, they're pulled to a space within 5 feet of the Frog Hemoth, who then gets to automatically make a bite attack against them. Now, once again,
Oh, wow, yeah.
yeah, once again, it's not an auto chomp like the first couple editions, because the attack can miss, or
Mm.
another player can use some kind of feature to impose disadvantage or buff the AC of themselves or whoever's getting attacked. Um, but if the attack hits, the target takes damage and is swallowed.
Ah, gotcha.
Uh-huh. So, once again, we're making this a little bit more fair, but this thing is still a nasty beast. Luckily, the 5th edition's Frog Hemoth's Stomach Acid doesn't do quite as much damage as in previous editions. And there's now a built-in feature that can enable swallowed players to escape. And that is if the Frog Hemoth takes at least 20 damage from a creature it has swallowed, it has to make a DC 20 Constitution saving throw or regurgitate any creatures that are within its stomach. So, if 2 of you happen to get swallowed and are somehow still alive, if one of you does at least 20 damage to it, then you both get to come out in a stream of vomit.
Yeah,
Yay!
which most of the time in other editions as well, you can do damage inside, but it has to be with like a small dagger
Yeah.
or a short sword. You can't do any like you can't move around with a whole ass long sword inside the Froghemoth.
Yeah. Yeah, here I think we're being more forgiving, and we're also accounting for the fact that this thing's stomach is pretty big. So it's
Mhm.
like, all right, you can hit it with a hammer. Yeah, that'll hurt it. Internal bleeding. Yeah, that works. Fireball if you're feeling crazy. Um,
Oh no.
talk about heartburn. Ha-cha-cha-cha-cha. We get a section in the lore here that says that bullywugs revere froghemoths as gods. They try to tame any froghemoth that they come across by offering it food so that they can bring it back with them to their lair.
Oh no. Wouldn't that I feel like the Froghemoths would try to eat the bullywugs.
Well, it's interesting you say that because the guide actually says that bullywugs can communicate with froghemoths on a basic level.
Ooh,
So
okay.
yeah, so the froghemoth figures out what they want after only eating 1 or 2 of them.
Yeah, just a couple
Yeah,
sacrifices.
that's right. So it's a couple little snacks. So once the froghemoth is brought back to the bullywug tribe, it'll be given regular tributes of food, and the tribe will protect it from harm. Apparently, bullywugs do everything they can to make sure that young froghemoths reach maturity. Okay, so
Mm, okay.
this is a throwback to the previous lore where there's these cults, right, of the big hopping frog monsters.
Mhm.
Now that is officially the bullywugs. So
That makes a lot of sense. Little frogs helping big frogs.
yeah,
It's in nature, right?
that's right. It's the circle of life, even though 1 or 2 of you gets eaten. Um, now, the Froghemoth does get a bit of a rework in Mordenkainen's Monsters of the Multiverse in 2022. Some of its hit points get taken away. Now its normal average is 161. And basically to compensate for that big hit to the hit points, now lightning damage does not reduce its AC by 2, doesn't do all those other horrible things to it. It just kind of slows it down a bit. So, balance.
Yeah, it makes sense because lightning damage, I feel like before was a little OP against the Froghemoth and
Yeah. It
in
was
limiting all its attacks and its AC. It seemed kind of
Well,
crazy.
it basically turned the Froghemoth from being like an actually like problem of a monster into more
Mm,
of a gimmick, right? And then once you figured
yeah.
out its thing, it's like, oh, well, I'll just use, um, I'm trying to think of the cantrip. What is it? You grab it. You,
Oh, shocking grasp.
yeah, I'm just gonna use shocking grasp on it. Great, we've defeated the whole monster.
Yeah.
And that's no fun.
No fun at all. Nope. Um, yeah, but what is fun is I kind of wanted to mention Froghemoth's return into the 5e reprint of Expedition to Barrier Peak. So we're coming back once
Oh,
again, full circle.
I love it.
This reprint comes from Goodman Games. It was published in 2019 in the original adventure series. So they called it the Original Adventures Reincarnated.
Okay,
This one was number 3, Expedition to the Barrier Peaks. This time allows modern players to enjoy this module in its 5e form, while also paying homage to the original module.
nice.
this new version contains all of the scans of the original module with modern commentary, as well as brand new artwork of the Froggy Myth by Errol Otis, who actually created some of the first artwork of the Froggy Myth in the original Barrier Peaks,
Ooh,
which
very
I thought,
cool.
once again, another cool full circle moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was really excited to hear about this conversion because after, like I said, after reading the first module, I really wanted to play it, and I think this would be a really fun, either one shot or like addition to an already existing campaign, just to throw in a little bit of fun mystery where our players can go explore a spaceship in the middle of Fantasyland.
Yeah, yeah. I can't say that, I would be too mad about my gnome artificer, getting getting swallowed temporarily, hoping that forever, by a frog hemoth. That'd be a lot of fun.
Oh, he'd
Um,
have too much fun in the spaceship.
yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, just touching everything. All of the fail-safe systems go off.
All of the things.
Yeah. Just a big self-destruct,
Our
in a
rogue
ball of
Leo
fire.
is infamous for attracting huge creatures
Uh-huh.
to
And
attack the party.
yeah, leading
So
them right
I
back in.
guarantee, yeah, I guarantee he would be the one to lead the frog human to the group.
Yeah, I would put lots of money on that. So
So
that's fifth edition. We've gone through the editions up to this point. As all of us who enjoy the hobby know, the next edition, or I guess half edition, right, of D&D is coming out, 5e.5/1 D&D.
yeah.
Jayde, what kind of changes are you looking forward to, or what kind of changes do you want to see come to the Frog Hemoth in
Yeah,
this facelift?
yeah. I think so, as we said in the Goblin episode, 5e Monster Manual is coming out, but I'm gonna predict that the Frog Hemoth is not gonna be in it.
Okay.
Yeah, the Frog Hemoth seems to have always been a supplemental creature,
Mm-hmm.
one that appears in modules or supplemental bestiaries, but it's never been a main monster, and I think that's okay. I think that because Froghemoth is by no means a classic creature,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of like comparable to goblins or to other classical creatures that
Yeah.
you'll see.
Like
Um,
dragons,
yeah, dragons. Yeah,
demons, devils,
yeah. I think Froghemoth was specifically created for a very niche setting, and I think that's where it belongs. In the kind of fish out of water creature that appears in a fantasy land, but is also a space-like entity.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I think with the most recent modules we've been having come out, a lot of them have been focusing on more of the multiversal aspect of
Mm-hmm.
D&D, a lot of Spelljammer and a lot of like multiverse adventures. So
Yeah.
I really wouldn't be surprised if Froggy Myth pops its huge and weird face up
Haha.
again as a otherworldly foe, as a small mini boss in one of those campaigns.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I think that Froghemoth is really more of a monster of the week type monster, right? Something that you throw at your players in a side adventure, or maybe as a part of like a small module or a one shot, something like that. So
Hmm.
yeah, I think our best bet of seeing this big guy come back will be in either a monster manual expansion, like a Fiend
Hmm.
Folio or a Volo's
Yep.
Guide or something like that. Or if it comes back in a module, like there was in Tomb of Annihilation, I think it'll be in one that is more location themed, which would probably be set in either a jungle, a swamp, or in a weird jammer crystal sphere.
Yeah.
That's my
Makes a lot of
prediction.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or like maybe a space gladiator battle. Wouldn't that be fun?
Ooh, yes. Yes, space gladiators have come to Skullport. Ooh, do with that, what you will, plucky DMs out there. So in conclusion, the Froghemoth, it's really one of the more unique creatures in the Dungeons and Dragons universe. Evolving from its roots, in Expedition to the Barrier Peaks to becoming a mainstay in various different editions of the game and various different settings within the D&D multiverse. Its blend of alien horror and amphibious terror has made it a fearsome encounter for adventurers for decades. So whether you're facing off against Madtooth the Hungry or a mutated radioactive beast, the Froghemoth remains a creature that players will remember, likely because it swallowed them whole. Dungeon Masters, next time you're creating an encounter, don't sleep on this amphibious menace. Give your players something to fear when they see those tentacles rising out of the swamp. And for the players, well, be careful where you swim. And now, I'd like you to picture this. This is not how this quest was supposed to go. It was supposed to be an easy in-and-out payday. Alice stood there with her mouth agape as she processed what just happened, replaying the events that led to this moment. The last words of their now late guide hung in the air. "I am ascending," Scroop cried. "Weep for me not, companions, for this is my destiny." His words turned to joyful, throaty laughter, which was abruptly silenced with a sickening crunch. Destiny or not, their guide was no more. The huge, weird, terrifying creature standing before them calmly munched on the guide before turning its 3 glowing amber orbs towards them. A swallow, a gulp, a roar. The creature was finished with its first course, and it was time for round 2. With shaking hands, Alice reached towards her helmet and lowered the visor. "I am a hammer in the hand of Tyr," Alice whispered as she steadied herself for the creature's next charge. I'm sorry, what did you say?" The paladin lifted her helmet's visor, raising a cupped, mailed hand to the side of her head. While she appreciated the full-face protection of her standard order issue sallet, wearing it did make her feel like she was always trying to hear the world from the inside of a bucket. "You're really going to have to speak up." Their guide croaked a reply. His strange, throaty voice didn't make understanding him any easier, but this time the paladin could make out, "I said, I think we're getting closer." Alice had had her reservations about this job. It seemed a little far-fetched when she and her companions saw the posting on the tavern message board. Eggs wanted. Handsome pay. Yes, the patron seemed nice, if a bit eccentric. And yes, the pay would be good. And yes, an included guide would make things easier. But a guide with webbed feet and skin always slimy to the touch? Alice always tried her best to embody the fairness of the teachings of old Grimjaws, but she did have her reservations. And what of these eggs? What was so special about them that they were worth such a high price? The party had taken the night to deliberate. "If this turns out to be a filthy illithid trick, I'm smashing those eggs myself," said Zalor, wrinkling his small, pointed nose in disgust at the thought. "Collecting materials native to this plane, however, is not beneath me." Naz tapped the small metallic box he'd been tinkering with between sips of ale. "If my calibrations are accurate, I should be able to pick off anything nasty that wanders off out of the muck before it gets too close." While Alice found them to be a bit unorthodox, the gnome's contraptions did always seem to come through in a pinch. "I'm in, but on one condition. If this turns out to be a wild axebeak chase, I get to write a ballad about friendship's folly and treasured time trickling away in a pointless pursuit." Para's mouth curled into a toothy grin, a low rumbling chortle rising from her chest. The Dragonborn could always be counted on to bring humor to a serious situation. "I will want to have a talk with our guide before proceeding, but, provided we're not dealing with anything evil or nefarious, I suppose I don't see a problem accepting this contract." Alice raised her tankard for a vote. The other 3 raised theirs in agreement, sealing their decision with a firm clink. The party trudged forward, each of their footsteps sloshing and sucking through the marshy ground. Their steps, usually so sure-footed from years of adventuring, were no match for the great swamp's insatiable hunger as it slurped up each party member's legs. Despite her initial hesitancy, Alice was finding their guide to be especially well suited to this environment. Unlike them, he seemed completely unbothered by the constant damp that clung to their clothing. As they cursed and waded through knee and waist-deep water, he happily hopped and swam his way forward. The paladin felt somewhat reassured, even if she was growing increasingly impatient and miserable. Alice held up a clenched fist, signaling her companions to pause. Mr. Skook! Yes, Mr. Skook. I would like an update on our current progress. She removed her helmet, trying to get a better view of the surrounding terrain. A few strands of auburn hair peeked out from under her coif as Alice dabbed beads of sweat from her brow. We've been marching for 3 hours now. When do you expect we'll reach our quarry? Soon! Oh, yes! See how the land changes! Their guide gestured with a webbed hand towards the ground they were standing on. Semi-packed earth, finely mixed with murky water. The perfect place for a nest. If a nest is close, then I think we've earned a breather. I know I, for one, could go for a quick rest, Naz said, walking towards a more solid-looking patch of ground. A nice snack, maybe even a cup of tea will have me feeling right as what? With a splash, his body disappeared beneath the surface of the muddy water. Naz! Shouted Para. The surface of the water rippled, but there was no sign of the gnome. Before anyone else could react, Zalor leapt towards the spot, perching with one leg on something just below the water's surface as he plunged his arm under. With a jerk, he pulled out a sputtering and drenched Naz. Speak, gnome. Do you still draw breath? I'm okay, Naz gasped between breaths. But I think I may have accidentally found what we're looking for. Alice and Para cautiously waded their way toward the pocket of swamp where Naz had gone under, muck and silt coming all the way up to their chests. Oh, gods! I'm going to stink after this, Para complained. As the surface calmed, the party began to make out a circle of dead reeds and aquatic plants. In the center, they could see the shapes of 5 spherical objects. Skaruk began jumping up and down, clapping his rubbery hands together. The Mucklord be praised! We found it! The adventurer's guide began to croak. His throat sac inflated with a low, ominous hum. What are you... Alice began. The soft ground under their feet began to quake. The gently rippling water began to churn. Before Alice could finish her sentence, a long, yellow-green tentacle shot up and wrapped itself around Skaruk. Oh, great Froghemoth! Lord of the muck and mire, I am ascending! I am ascending! And you shall all ascend too! Alice, get your head out of Tyr's ass! This is no time to space out! Yelled Zalor. 2 translucent arms lashed out from his sides, batting away a tentacle as it made a grab for him. Alice snapped back to the present. Their guide was dead. They were alive. And there was that thing in between them and a pile of gold. Look, pal, I'm not sure what you are, but you don't want to eat me. I've been told I taste terrible. Naz threw his small metal cube on the ground. In the blink of an eye, it had sprouted legs, a curved neck, and shimmering bowstrings. It loosed 2 bolts of energy at the monstrous creature, hitting it squarely in the center of its 3 eyes. Its roar turned into a howl of pain. Naz grinned at Alice. Bullseye, he said. Alice's face began to break out into a wide, relieved smile, only to contort into a horrified look as she saw it. That thing's tongue, wet and barbed, flying straight towards her gnome companion. Watch out! As the words leapt from her lips, so, too, did she, as she hurled her shoulder into her friend. As Naz was knocked back, he thought he saw Alice wink as the tongue wrapped around her waist, then pulled her into the beast's hungry maw. Alice lifted her visor, attempting to rub the guts from her stinging eyes. She patted herself, quickly assessing the damage. Bones, seemingly intact. Weapon, usable. Armor, only a melted pauldron and a liquefied greave. As she breathed a sigh of relief, Para spoke the words on her mind. You're alive! 2 scaly arms wrapped around Alice's shoulders, pulling her into a hug. Thanks, by the way. she whispered. For saving Naz? Alice whispered back. Well, yes, but also for almost getting eaten. I've never had such brilliant inspiration for a song before. Alice playfully swatted Paris' chest. Fine, fine, we'll close this chapter with a song. At least we can get these damnable eggs back to town without any more headaches. Alice? She felt Naz's slender fingers tapping her hip. I'm not so sure about that. It seems the locals have sent us a greeting party for killing their god, Zalor hissed through gritted teeth. The party backed into a defensive circle. All around them, countless forms began to emerge from the mire, their skin glistening as they raised stone-tipped spears towards them. A single croaky, yet clear voice called out, These infidels have defiled our lands and our ways. Let us spill their blood to avenge the blood spilled of our great mock lord. The voice began to croak, joined by a second, then third, then a chorus of throaty voices, all growing louder in unison. Alice steeled herself, trying to focus to the cacophony. I am a hammer of Tyr.
Thanks for joining us on Browsing the Bestiary. Be sure to subscribe for more episodes and check out our Patreon at Browsing the Bestiary, all one word.
There you can keep up to date on any new pod-related announcements, access reference pages for each episode, and download character sheets for characters featured in our story times. You can also comment on what you think the next monster will be, and if you get it right, you'll get inspiration.
And if you're something of a lore master yourself, you can offer us corrections for any facts we got wrong. If you catch something we missed, you may get a shout out in a future episode.
Remember to cite your sources.
I'm Dungeon Mistress Jayde.
And I'm Lore Master Andy.
Until next time, may your dice rolls be high
and your adventurers ever prepared.